As you guys know, a couple of months ago I bought a 1978 Honda CB250Twin. Now I haven't really had a lot of time to look at it until now because I've been busy with other projects and school. But since the whole country is in lockdown, I have plenty of time to work on it. Since buying the bike, I've only been able to start it once.
Okay dan.
I knew this when buying the bike that it needed some serious attention. It didn't like to start, and when it did, it almost always died. I even tried recording a first test ride video, but the bike just wouldn't start.
Alright, I'm back. As you guys can see, I have my motorcycle gear on. Whenever this bike starts, I'm gone. Not gonna go far though.
So today we are going to take a look at it and seeing if we can fix it. But before we get into this video, I just want to let you guys know I am giving away a bike. I'm giving away a SkyTeam PBR that I'm building myself. For more information, check the link in the description. I decided to check if it had a good spark first. I was pretty sure it did because I already got it running once. But it never hurts to check. You can do this really easily. Just take out the spark plugs, connect them back to their wire, hold them up against something metal and turn over the engine. And as expected, we had a nice spark. I also wanted to take out the plugs to see if the engine was too lean or too rich. And as it turns out, the spark plugs were really black and wet, which means too rich. Next thing we are going to do is check the valve clearance. I spoke to the previous owner and he said he never did this. Luckily it is very easy to do on this bike, unlike my R125. We took off the tank to have easy access to the top of the engine. The valve cover is held on by two bolts, one on the left, one on the right. You can just loosen these and the cover comes right off. Be careful because there is a rubber gasket underneath this cover. You don't want to damage that. Make sure the piston is at top dead center on the compression stroke, otherwise your measurements won't be correct. This is a 2-cylinder bike with 3 valves on each cylinder, so 6 in total. The intake and exhaust valve have different clearances, so check your service manual and adjust accordingly. You will need a feeler gauge to measure the clearance. It's a cheap tool and much needed if you ever work on a motorcycle yourself. On this bike the intake valve should be 0.12 millimeters and the exhaust should be 0.16. And as it turns out, 3 of these 6 valves were way off. Luckily everything was so easy to access on this Honda that it only took about 45 minutes. We put everything back together and let's see the result.
Echt wel beter.
Alright, it runs. Not great, but at least it starts. So the bike now starts and it idles pretty good. A little bit low, but it's easy to adjust. It responds good to the choke, but it does not like to rev. As you could hear in the video, whenever I tried to give it a little bit of throttle, it just sputtered and it wasn't happy. So next thing I'm gonna do is take off the carb. The carb is held on to the engine with two hose clamps. You can loosen these clamps and then pull the carb out while pushing down. When the carb is out, you want to disconnect the choke cable and the two throttle cables. And of course, when working on carbs, all of the little screws are just completely rounded off. After fighting with them for a little bit, I was finally able to get into the carb. The carb itself was really clean, which is great. Nothing was clogged, nothing was really dirty, but one of the gaskets was damaged, which I knew because one of the carbs was leaking fuel. I ordered a rebuild kit for one of the carbs. Also, I noticed the pilot screw was backed all the way out. So I set the idle screw and the pilot screw to the factory setting. I put the car back together, put it on the bike, and let's see what happens. Alright, so we are back here in the shed finally. I checked the carb, everything looked clean, nothing was clogged. As you guys know, this side had a broken gasket. I knew that before opening it because it was like dripping right here, and I don't know if you can see, but this is all like stained because of fuel dripping onto it. So that has been fixed, as well as the pilot screw or whatever it's called. These two, according to the manual, they have to be opened by two whole turns, but these were backed out almost completely. So now we just have to get the carbs on here and connect the clutch and throttle cable, and we can test it out. Alrighty, as you guys can see, the carbs are in. That was only a small fight, but it works. Whoa, that's weird looking to the camera. Throttle returns nice and snappy. The choke works. So that's good. Now let's get the fuel tank on there and see if she'll run. Alright, fuel should be running into the carbs now. Let's see if we have any leaks. Hopefully I didn't forget to shut off or like shut the drain plugs on both carbs, but so far so good. Before this, it didn't even want to start, and when I hit the throttle, it would just like fall flat on its face. You would hear it like sputtering. Right now I'm able to give it some revs. Alright, I just installed the stock gauges. They still work. I don't know if you guys can see that. Neutral light is on. Indicator light works. Everything works. Or everything seems to work. I just want this to work so I can dial in the idle speed. Alright, so back to trying to tune these carbs. Well, these are CV carbs, which are constant velocity carbs. They do not like pod filters. Why? Well, it's kind of in the name. Constant velocity, they need a constant steady supply of air to build up pressure, because it works in quite differently than your standard carb that most people are used to. They do not like these pods. So in order to get these running properly, I'm gonna have to kind of restrict these, which might sound weird, but to get the best performance out of these carbs, you cannot just go for the biggest pot filter you can. Why? They need a constant supply. It's kind of like comparing a bucket to a bottle of water. When you dump out a bucket, you turn it upside down, the water comes out almost instantly and the bucket is empty. That's the pot filter. Now a more restrictive way is, for example, a bottle. If you turn a bottle upside down, water will come out at a almost constant stream, but it won't be empty right away. That's a very simple analogy, but that's kind of what's going on. This is the bucket, and the CV carbs do not like buckets. So we definitely took a step in the right direction. 2 weeks ago this bike didn't even start. Right now it does. Does this bike run? Yes it does, thank God. I didn't buy a bike that is unsavable. It's a good base for a project. Sadly I have to cut this episode a little bit short. I'm not able to get parts real quick due to the virus. I ordered parts for the pit bike and the PBR like weeks ago, they still haven't shown up. And I want to provide you guys with a video, so sadly we did not get it running perfectly, but we did get it running, which was the goal of this episode. I will go order some new jets, and I'll see you guys next time.